Oh my goodness, what an amazing service so far. I'm very touched. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very moved. And I was thinking, what could be better than being in a place called Unity, given all that's going on in the world right now? So, beautiful. My name is Lorraine Marino, and just to give you a little context for me, though Betsy spoke about me as a path worker, I'm not just going to talk to you today about path work. A little background, my work has been organization and group dynamics and development. So in that capacity, I work with all kinds of groups. And my spiritual calling, my path has been the path work, which I hear is very aligned with Unity. I'm hearing it recited. And I would call it a spiritual, psychological path, but the aim that we have is to connect more and more to our divinity and bring our divinity into life. So it sounds very much like what you're doing. What I want to talk about today, it's very relevant, this idea of speech without love. That passage you read from the Bible is so relevant. In my work, I've become very aware of how groups, my family, my circle of friends, myself included, have been so affected by the intense polarization that's going on right now, the separation, the othering, the very harsh language that's going on in our larger environment. I'm just going to take. Thank you, Maria. There seems to be this intensity in our language when we differ. And it isn't a problem that we have differences. You want a different candidate, you feel differently about a certain issue. But what I notice is the way we talk about these differences has become almost violent. We objectify others. We speak in such hateful, harsh ways about them. And I also work with a number of religious ministers and pastors, and they have told me that even in their congregations that had previously never been affected by external issues have been split apart. This rancor, this division, do you wear a mask? You don't wear a mask. Do you get the vaccine? You don't get the vaccine. Who are you voting for? It's actually split apart congregations that were once very unified for their religious values. And this is very painful. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Even where people had a common religious bond, values, there has been this infiltration of harshness, of the mean language, language without love. And I think a companion to this is the use of misinformation, twisting, passing on rumors, information without validity. So I think we've been so focused on the violence caused by guns, and that is an issue. I am not negating that. But I contend that the greater violence is speech. You know, there's a saying in a biblical reference that a gun or a weapon or a sword can kill people who are in proximity, but speech can kill at a distance. Speech is what can inspire us to pick up weapons. So I would really like, as I talk about some things, for you each to reflect, where are some of the things that I talk about? Where might you have some part, some version of these things? So, you know, I was thinking also as I was listening to all the songs that you were singing, that you all, many of you, are already using this incredible gift that every one of us has, which is our voice. Everyone has speech influence. You're already using yours to create beautifully, to uplift. And that's what we can possibly do with this incredible gift of our voice. But we can also use it for destructive means. So I've become very good at analyzing other people, you know, on TV, in podcasts and other people that I hear talking negatively. And then I was sort of holding myself separate because I don't quite talk to that level. But my spiritual path always says start with the self. So I decided maybe I should. And here comes along in my work with a rabbi who told me about a Jewish tradition, a very practical Jewish spiritual tradition called Musar. And they basically study what they call soul traits. And one of these soul traits has a dimension called guarding the tongue. I thought that's very interesting. And it is really about having a mindfulness about how we talk to each other, how we talk about each other. So I thought I would share a little bit about that. I'll just give you a few things. Some of these might feel extreme, but I want you to listen with your inner ears and hear, sort of look with your inner eyes. Some of the guidelines that they start with is that in this practice, they say that to malign another is equivalent to murder. And I thought, wow, that's really strong, but let me think about that spiritually. And then I found in a passage in the Gnostic Gospels, something attributed to Jesus says the very thing. Jesus says, if you malign, if you besmirch the name of another, whether or not you think you're justified, it is equivalent to a kind of murder. He says the same thing. So I started thinking about that because I feel that we can be very careless in passing on rumor. Sometimes it's very juicy to gossip. So I'll go through some of the things they say are things to be aware of in negative speech, in contributing to the negativity in the environment. I know that we all share that you believe thoughts have power, thoughts create. So I think this is the consciousness that these wise people are speaking to. One example is if you share a negative or a degrading comment, but the comment is true. But because something is true, do you really need to share it? I'll use myself as an example. I have a cousin who told me gleefully she's learned how to cheat at the self-checkout line at the grocery store. And she's sort of excited because she saves a few bucks. She does not need to. She's wealthy. And I sort of had an inner judgment, but I didn't say anything. And then the next night I was talking to my brother, and I told him about this. But then in thinking about this, I thought, why did I need to tell my brother that? What was my point? I influenced his opinion of her. He's very close to her. And it's that idea, why do I need to share something? Was I trying to be close to him? Because I didn't say anything to her, did I need to make her bad? So that's just an example. I hope you don't mind my using myself. You might leave thinking, she's not very enlightened, that's not bad. A very related guideline, something might be true, but what's the psychological impact that might have on someone? So let's say that you have a friend who's learning to cook. He's very excited. He makes you this wonderful meal. He brings out the soup, serves the soup. What do you think of the soup? And you think it's really salty. It's actually not that good. What do? Is it worth hurting this person's feelings? Or do you need to be honest because maybe you have a high blood pressure? But again, it's the idea of how important is it to tell the truth, even though it might be a true comment for you. And there are many, many examples around that. There's a little story this rabbi told me in the Talmud. They have a sort of a rule that you always compliment the bride at a wedding, no matter what. You say she's beautiful. But the story in the Talmud says, well, what if she's not very attractive and maybe a little awkward and maybe she has a foul smell? Do you tell the truth? Do you lie and call her beautiful? And it says, yes, you call her beautiful. Again, it's this idea of what is the impact that you want to have. Now I want to move on to something to be careful of that is, I think, a temptation I have. It's rationalizing that it's okay for you to talk negatively about someone, complain about someone, because maybe they're a politician or an actor or an athlete. So they're sort of an objectified thing, or they're so bad that it's okay for you to trash talk about them. I do this. I find myself thinking it's okay to speak, to really get into a frenzy maybe about a politician that I don't like. But why is that okay? Or another form of rationalization is, what if someone hurt me? Or I really think they've done something wrong. There's another place where I may rationalize that it's okay to talk about them because they hurt me or they've done something wrong. Anybody relating to any of this? You're all so good. This might not be the talk for you. I just heard this beautiful thing. Okay.
I like trash talk.
Yeah, I am from Philadelphia. I should mention that. Little Philly street in here. And here's one that I definitely I can see in myself, though I try. It is actually not using your voice when you should. It's listening passively to someone being maligned and not saying anything. Or perhaps listening to a racist comment, a homophobic comment, or something about someone. And I want to tell this story, and it's still a little alive in me, this example, because it was very emotional. In the 90s, I had a very nice job in a corporation, and often some of the other women in the office would go to lunch. And often the subject that would come up at these lunches is a young secretary who she was, they said she doesn't dress professionally, and they would often mock how she dressed and call her names. Now this young girl, I loved her. She was sweet. She couldn't do enough for you. She often baked us cookies, brought cookies in. Her name was Lila. I just never forget this. I would feel awful sitting there at the lunch. But I was afraid if you just don't speak up, you don't break ranks. And then maybe they would talk about me. But then when I would go back to the office and see Lila, I would feel so awful. I felt like I had no integrity. Fast forward a few lunches. I thought about never going to lunch, but I did. And when it came up, I almost felt like this was a life or death moment for me. I spoke up and I said, it doesn't feel good to me that we talk about Lila. She's so sweet, and I would really like us to not have her be the subject. Dead silence. There was no validation in the moment, or yeah, that's good. It was dead silence. So it was awkward, but do you know, when I went back to the office and I saw Lila, it was the first time I felt clean. I felt like I had integrity. I wasn't betraying her. And that moment, though it was a long time ago, really had an impact because I let myself feel the effect of what is really used to be common behavior, to sit around and gossip. Can anyone relate to that?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's like what you do. It's innocent. It's harmless. Well, this spiritual tradition says, no, it isn't harmless. If we believe thoughts create, if we're trying to bring love to our speech, what am I doing? I'm harming a reputation. Even passing on gossip that you're not really sure is true is giving it life, giving it energy. You could be damaging someone's reputation, which is their name. So, I'd like to have a little interaction here. Are you game? Depends on what it is, right? So this is a little low tech. It's a flip chart, but I didn't want to be too formal, so We'll see. I'm going to read some questions. Oh, this is tough for you folks. Can you read through paper? Let's see if I can move this forward a little. I'll read these. And what I'd like you to do is just think about, this is no self-judgment here, but just really ask yourself, do a little examination. Do any of these, do I see myself in any of these? Do I malign? In other words, do I speak ill of others? Again, no judgment, but just ask yourself, why? Why do I do that? There's usually something significant. You have to get something off your chest, or what is it? Do I gossip? Sometimes gossip is just juicy and sort of fun. It's a little negative pleasure. Do I rationalize that it's okay to speak negatively about someone, either because they're so bad, or they've hurt me, or it's a politician, how's he going to know? Or an actress. Or they hurt me, and I think this is sometimes what we can do. If I feel you've done something wrong, if I don't know how to deal with it constructively, if I don't know how to talk to you in a constructive way, I might be tempted to just spin around with a third person and talk about you. Do I consider the impact of sharing information even if it is true? Do I directly address someone for the purpose of healing, or do I withhold and just think about them and how bad they are inside, but there's stuff coming out of here? Or do I triangulate? I don't know how to solve this issue with you directly, so I'm going to talk to a few other people about you. Do I stay silent in the face of maligning or someone being talked about? Why? Maybe I just don't know how to deal with it or address it. But just ponder a minute. I'm going to be quiet for like 30 seconds. Just think about this. And I would love to hear from someone who might be willing to share. If there's something that you see in yourself here, or some insight that you have. Anyone? Yes. Hi, what is your name?
I'm Johnny.
Johnny.
I really, it's just, thank you so much for your talk. It's really gotten me thinking. I have a manager who is a lovely person.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy having conversations with her and everything, but I don't like her management style. It sort of makes me, it feels chaotic, whatnot. And I've talked lots of smack.
Oh, yeah.
I have. And
yeah.
I realized I was doing this a few months ago, and it, like you were saying, it didn't feel good.
Right.
I had to really pull it back.
Yeah.
Because I can get people riled up. I have a lot of
Yeah.
power. Like, I realize that I have a lot of power, and we all do. And it's like, and I can get people riled up about it. And I don't want to rile people up about that. I don't want to hurt her. I like her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I just, it drives me crazy once in a while.
Right.
But I drive people crazy once in a while, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about you too, Johnny.
Okay, you're next over there. Yeah. You know what? I just want to I'm so touched by what you said. I want to unpack a few things because it's learning for all of us. You realize you have power. Remember when I said we all have this power of the voice. And some of us have a lot of personal power. You probably have a lot of personal charisma and power. Yes, there. And then all the more reason you have to be responsible. Because we could talk about certain politicians who have that, and they're choosing to rally people around something. You have like a mini version of that. But we don't always think about that we have this power. So I really appreciate that you noticed it. Now you could use that same thing for good, Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Lavender? You,
She's a comedian.
There's a part of me.
She's a therapist.
okay. Do you want to come up and lay down?
All clients, dickheads or assholes or
Yeah. Yeah.
and to them, I mean, I do it.
Yeah.
I do it out of humor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I do it out of humor, sort of to break the ice when things get too serious, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
We're all human.
Yeah.
I do it with a particular politician,
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
that politician.
Yeah.
Pretending
Yeah.
another politician.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't-
Yeah. Yeah. But I can I unpack two things that you said. One is your intention in those moments where you're just you're being funny. That's different, right? Am I right?
I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, okay. There's some work maybe
I
to
hope I'm
do.
being funny.
Yeah, right. And then it's interesting, isn't it, when we get going about a politician or anybody, I caught myself railing against the very thing I'm angry about. I'm like doing the same
Sure.
behavior. Do you find that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all have to reflect, which is the beauty of your talk today, is
Right.
we can't be bragging on others or complaining about
Right.
others if we're not self-reflecting.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for letting me call you out there. Yes. What's your name?
My name is Chris.
Chris.
I was thinking that, is there really something within myself that's truthful about what I'm saying about the other?
Right.
It may not be a direct path on that, but it may be something different, like your example about
Right.
stealing.
Yes.
So how do I steal? Maybe not physically, but do I steal by taking something from somebody,
Right.
even in an energetic way?
Right.
It's a really good point you brought up.
Thank you. Yeah. And the other thing you made me think of, Chris, is you might have a truth to say to someone, because I'm not saying you should sit on things that need to be said, but it is the how. Can I find a way to open-heartedly come to someone directly and work it out rather than just sort of get caught in the negative way of thinking about it?
So is what you're saying, it makes sense to really continue to talk about it, not just throw it out. Now let's go back and forth and have dialogue
Right.
instead of shutting back.
Exactly. Because what if it's someone I'm in relationship with? I need to be able to have that talk. Yes. 2 people in a row. I saw you first.
I was thinking that sometimes finding the right words is difficult.
Yes.
So it's a little bit easier to collude and to feel like you're fitting in.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the challenge for me, is sometimes
Yeah.
finding the right word
Right. Yeah. And the fitting
and
in.
the fitting in.
Yeah. And I don't know how everybody was socialized, but I know as a young girl, big Italian family, you connected by gossiping on the aunt who was not present. Or, it's terrible, but it was a way to feel connected and fit in. And the other thing you said, that could be a whole workshop we could do, finding the right words. But one thing is, if you can ask yourself, let me open my heart, what am I feeling? And talk from the heart, to say, wow, when you do blah, 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 I feel so embarrassed or I feel hurt. So that it's not like you are such a jerk, that pointed finger feeling, So you also.
Yeah, I was thinking like sarcasm and humor is, it's really, it's confronting the person,
Yeah.
but it's guarding the heart.
Yes,
So I'm
that's
telling
good.
you the truth, but I'm using humor to tell you what I want to tell you, but I don't want to
Yes.
get too vulnerable myself, and
That's
I don't want to make
good.
you vulnerable, and I don't know how to have a vulnerable situation.
Right.
So it's easier just to like make light of it and joke about it,
Yes.
but it doesn't get received very well.
No, I was just going to say, how do people usually receive sarcasm?
Unless you're twisted sense of humor, you
Yeah.
really don't like it.
Yeah, I know. It's like sarcasm's like you feel two things. It's like, huh?
I got that.
You know? Yeah. I got a lot of hands. Yes, Angela from Florida. Welcome.
You make me realize, because I have a 18-year-old son who is very emotionally intelligent, and I've taught him his whole life explaining how people are different, or maybe their point of view, or where they're coming from, or to be understanding and accepting.
Yeah.
He's very, and we never really talk about people, you know.
Wow.
And I've really instilled that in him, and now that he's gotten older, he's had a childhood best friend for, he was probably 4 or 5, that his best friend's father has now become a celebrity, if you will. Instagram, you know,
Yeah.
300, 3 million followers, whatever, big time.
Yeah.
And we all of a sudden have this thing where we talk about him all the time. Because we happen to know this person for 15 years.
Yeah.
And if maybe everybody really knew the truth of who this person was,
Yes.
it's all going to come out in the wash, and we always talk about it.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, all that work I've done over the years, like not talking about the everyday people, I'm doing it, and that maybe isn't
Right.
okay, that because he's now a celebrity, like you said, they're a
Yes,
figure,
we
they
think
put
it's
themselves in the
okay,
spotlight,
right.
or
Yeah.
are we doing, and
Yeah.
why are we doing it? Because are
Yeah.
we jealous? Are we angry? Do we want to see, him
Take them
crumble, the
down.
truth come out?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or, why are we doing it? And why am I
Yeah.
teaching him that it's okay?
Yeah.
And when we do speak of it, we always feel bad because
Yes.
my son's best friend is the sweetest kid, and we
Aw.
love him. And if
Oh,
this
yeah.
boy ever knew we were talking about his father, right, wrong, or indifferent,
Yeah.
that we were talking about his dad, we wouldn't be true friends, and I would be
Right.
so disloyal to the friend.
Right.
Like, if it would just break his heart if he knew that,
Yes.
we say these things
Yeah.
and we think of his father like this and behind
Right.
closed doors,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm teaching one of his lifelong friendships to betray a friend in a way.
Yeah,
Like, and it's
yeah.
not okay just because
Right.
he's,
Well, first of all, you're human.
my son and
Right.
I are going to have a big talk about
Oh, well,
this when we
that's
get home.
good. Yeah. You know what I think is so important, and it's what affected me, when you feel the pain of what you're doing, because that inspires us to want to do something differently.
Yeah.
Which ultimately is to express the God, to express even a difficult talk in a loving way. And it's great that you have this foundation, because he's now going to get the contrast more than if he had, hey, this is what we always did. He'll feel the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't ever have conversations about people like that. Him and I don't ever talk
Yeah.
about people. We have a more
Yeah.
like maybe why are they like this, or why maybe
Right.
see their point of view. Like if I always taught them to see
Right.
other people's point
Yeah.
of views or their struggle
Yeah.
or why maybe they
Yeah.
behave in these ways.
But you're so much further ahead because you're saying, why are we doing it? You're questioning it, which is great. I just see it as you were at a level 5, great, like a good grade level, and you're now being challenged to go up to your next level.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're
There's
welcome.
gonna be no living with her now.
Nanette, anything you want to say?
We don't have time.
Angela says, oh, look at the time. Okay. Andre.
Well, one thing, thinking about that day 14 years ago when I was walking down for the surgery, it was an 11-hour operation, which didn't have the highest chance of survival. So you probably were thinking, I hope this guy makes it. But instead, you started cracking jokes about whether they were going to take a coffee and donut break halfway in between, which was great.
Yeah.
The other thing, the whole idea of interaction, I think, is great for speakers we have in the future. And one other point, there's a thing in Psychology 101 that if you see something in someone else that bothers you, the chances are good. It reminds you of something in yourself. And
Right.
then there was one other thing, because we've had some blowback on whether to possibly invite the minister to come and give a talk again. And it's, pro con things. And one of the things that was said that really got me thinking was, well, he hasn't come to any services since. And I said, yeah, how come? That's terrible. It's almost a year. Then I found out that if a minister is let go, he cannot
Oh,
come
yeah.
back.
For a year,
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah. Most places have that so that you're not,
It's a unity,
attached
it's
to-
a unity rule.
yeah.
That was it.
But I'm saying it's also true in other faith traditions, so that you let go
Yeah.
for whoever the new person is. Yeah. Now that's a great example of checking information
Yeah.
and how we can pass something on and we don't check out, is it true? I was telling Marie and Andre, there's a gentleman in my neighborhood, his mailbox was vandalized, and he was convinced it was a teenager up the street. There was no evidence for this, but he went around telling everybody in the neighborhood. Most of us feel good about this kid, but then some people actually started being affected and being more suspicious of this kid. Well, it wasn't the kid. That wasn't who did it, but he cannot get, that seed has been planted about the kid, and he can't get out of it. And that family's mailbox then got vandalized.
Oh.
It's like this chain reaction that you can start because you just quick, you don't even know if what you're saying is true. Yeah. Is there a time limit? Is there? This is like they play you out at the Academy Awards. Da, 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 da. Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you for being willing to share. Appreciate it.